talk to you. So long I ain't talk to you. Go funny, you're in my sight. Didn't know you was here tonight. It looked like you're doing alright, like money running real nice. I thought you hiding. I thought you went foreign. Look how things happen now. Look how things happen now. So let me hug up and squeeze you. I don't even want to leave you. I don't know when we'll bounce up again. So let me take a little thing until then. So long I ain't see you. Give me a wine now. Give me a wine now. Give me the wine that I want. Long time, long time. So long I ain't see you. Give me a wine now. Give me a wine now. And let me make up for all this time. Make up for all this time, Lord. I got to see you, my friend, from long time. Let me
yes,
just
indeed,
take
of
a
course.
wine. I wanna hold on together and rock away the whole night.
I could do this whole night, but of course we have a job to do. And of course, while culture and the fact that it appeases and it relaxes and it gives one a sense of belonging, there are other elements and factors that are significant contributors to life in general. And so, of course, as the old saying goes, too much play make Jack what? Mere what? A mere toy. And all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. Very important. But the moral of the story is that you can't have too much of the same thing. If you're eating bread every day, you know, at one point in time as a human being, you get fed up. And of course, it is said that human beings are what? They relish variety, because variety is the spice of life. A pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good day to you. I want, of course, to complete, if it's possible, that issue that I raised last night, but we had so much calls or so much engagement in the spirit of reciprocity and dialogue, because I have always said, it's only the PNM will tell you that, of course, Eric William was the third brightest man in the world. They couldn't tell us who were the first and second. And of course, when I was in Form 3, I was broached with that particular subject by one of my student colleagues. And I had to ask the obvious question. But of course, I did it my way by saying, if it is that this man is the third brightest man in the world, then I want to see he. In those days, of course, I was now in the nascent or the beginning stage of my academic pursuit, and of course, prowess as well. You know, getting there. By that time, I understood what was education, how significant it was, and where it could take me, etc., etc. Not me alone, but of course, those who are so inclined. And I asked the question, I want to see this man, but they asked me for what? Obviously, I had to say, why? And I said, well, I want to ask him one question. Since he's the third brightest man in the world, and they asked me, obviously, what is that you want to ask the man? I said, all I want to ask him is, what's my mother's name? So it is ridiculous. No one has a monopoly on education. Let's not waste time. Not even Einstein. You may be good in the area of your focus, and therefore your pedantic prowess or your eruditic nature in the area and field that you may focus upon, but don't tell me you're the brightest man in the world or the third brightest, as the case may be. But it turned out that that was part and parcel of the propaganda machinery of the PNM to, of course, support the illusion that somehow great is the PNM and it shall prevail. Well, we have seen on too many occasions not to rubbish that notion. Of course, there are those sycophants who believe in that nonsense. This is about Trinidad and Tobago, and it's about our population, and it's about utilizing the resources God-given and those that we have created, whether if you want to say artificially, in order to do what? To service the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And I dare say future populations as well, because when you are a government, you must think about the future, and therefore that is why you have savings in a home, and indeed a government also, of course. These days they call them sovereign savings or sovereign accumulations for the specific purpose of focusing on future generations. Let's not waste time with that. So, but I want to clear up the issue that I raised last night in terms of, and I see that it is still rearing its head, but let's put closure to it tonight in terms of the impasse, the imbroglio, the public spat or embarrassment consequential of the 50th meeting of the heads of government, or the heads in, of course, syndicates relating to CARICOM. Yeah. And the insistence of this government of transparency, accountability in the administration of significant components of that Treaty of Chaguaramas initiative that took place, I think it was 1973, and exists today, coming together of Caribbean states. Of course, you must know that there are sub-regional, let's say, grouping. It's called the OECD, yeah, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. So the OECS, Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, comprising, of course, Grenada and Dominica, and of course St. Lucia, yeah, having their own central bank, etc. So it's a subgrouping, and they carry what is called the EC currency, Eastern Caribbean currency, different from Trinidad, different from Barbados, different from Jamaica. But I thought I should give a little piece of geography as well as, of course, what I consider to be civics. Yes, a long time they call it civics. Today they call it social studies. Well, whatever it is, the fact is that that is information that many may not know. They believe, well, maybe this thing comprised of Trinidad because all of us live here in Trinidad, but Tobago maybe to lesser extent or greater extent, depending on the perspective, but certainly Grenada, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Dominica, Montserrat, St. Kitts, and we could go up the islands, including, of course, Jamaica. And then, of course, while it is part of the Caribbean, it's not part of the grouping, but I think they have observer status, and that is, of course, Cuba. Yes, Cuba. And I believe Haiti may well have observer status as well as, yeah. Let me end there now that I am on a roll. But the fact of the matter is that we would have had an impasse that has to be cleared up. And I'm playing this clip tonight as the proof of the issues that are of concern and has been brought into the public space or domain from Jamaica in the north to Guyana in the south. And the events that would have transpired to cause, of course, the Trinidad and Tobago government at the highest level to generate the level of skepticism, doubt, and I want to say recriminations that would have gone from the chairman, who incidentally is the Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis, to, of course, why she has not said anything, but the Secretary General, who is the center of all of this concern generated by the Trinidad and Tobago government in particular. Very vociferous, very insistent. And the last thing they have asked the Secretariat to do is to provide all of the documentation leading up to the election or the re-election of the present Secretary General. Yes. Scala, yes, Ms. Scala. And it is important because we are all members. All members must be informed properly and must feel comfortable that they are part and parcel of an entity where all are equal. Because that is why you have every 6 months, you have, of course, this changing of the guard, so to speak, as far as chairman. The chairmanship is rotated among, I think Trinidad and Tobago's turn will come some way, I believe in 2028, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So Carla Barnett is the person at the center. She has not spoken, but we have, of course, a former Prime Minister of St. Vincent Gonzalez, and then you have, of course, former Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis as well, talking, not the current one, not Drew, the former, and so you have different sides of the story. But how could we be as objective as possible in such a scenario? Well, I want to say we have to base it on the evidence. What are the documentary evidence? Well, so far we have not been given any indication that the documents that would have reached all of the countries that were supposed to assemble in St. Kitts, that there was to be a retreat only for the heads. There's no, let me be as kind as possible. There has been no firm, irrefutable evidence that there was to be a retreat of only the heads. And, of course, the election of Secretary General. And in recent times, and I mean, I don't know if they're not thinking or if they believe that people are not going to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4 and not 22, because of course there is a lot of gaslighting, clearly, a lot of and a lot of attempts to withhold evidence or to direct people's mind in a particular direction so as to generate discombobulation or confusion. Let us see if we can manage to sift through the information that we have that is logical, common sense, etc. So we know, first and foremost, that there is no evidence to show that the bundle, the information that would have come to every single territory and head of state associated with CARICOM, there's nothing that says that on that day, first and foremost, only CARICOM leaders, and secondly, that there would have been a re-election or an election of a Secretary General. I'm saying so because if such an exercise was to take place, one would have expected that that is so significant that everybody would have known. You see, because there may be some state, as clearly as in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, who may want to see a different person at the helm of that administration of CARICOM. So you must give people an opportunity. You cannot orchestrate a situation where every member has a vote, and if one is not satisfied with the incumbent, then you must provide an opportunity for competition. But there was none. There was none. So let's start there. There was none. You understand where I'm coming from? If there was supposed to be an election for Secretary General, then every member state must, and it was incumbent and it was necessary and it was an imperative for the Secretariat to inform and the chairman ought to have been abreast, so that the question of clandestine, the question of surreptitious and corrupt must raise its head in such a situation. All of us know what a democracy is and what democratic processes are. You cannot force a situation on the people. So what transpired there? Are you saying that one person was up for election? One person, and the heads went into retreat and just selected that person? There must be some kind of transparency, accountability, and the assurance that some kind of competitive environment would have been orchestrated. But it gets worse. It gets worse from the perspective that recently the chairman said that, listen, it's when they went on the retreat. Mind you, when they went on the retreat, they decided to have an election, which really wasn't an election. I've just explained it can't be an election with one person vying, with one person having been nominated. So that entire process under normal circumstance is flawed. No. If there was a situation where prior to that meeting, the heads, Trinidad and Tobago, clearly would have taken a position and therefore would have had an opportunity to say, listen, we prefer to have this individual based on their qualification, etc., to be the new, once elected, to be the new CARICOM Secretary General. Nothing of the sort took place. How people who have a fundamental interest in democracy, who by way of electoral processes and enshrined in their respective constitutions for the respective territories, and fundamental to all of that is the whole question of competition and people being given an opportunity at least to put the hat in the ring. How that could not have happened at the level of CARICOM? CARICOM, incidentally, is the assembly of what I consider to be the epitome, the apex of our traditional and, of course, democratic tradition that we hold and we cherish dearly. We saw what almost transpired in Guyana a couple elections ago, where there was an attempt to undermine, and in Trinidad. And I am still convinced that the legal presiding adjudicators in the context of Trinidad and the outcome of the 2015 general elections, to tell me that EBC did wrong, but you decide that there was nothing wrong because the outcome would have been the same. The mere fact that EBC did wrong, it ought to have triggered a re-election, because democracy and the integrity of the whole process demands that. And here we have where heads of state assembled in St. Kitts select or elect a Secretary General, a very important administrative position. And you want people to swallow that, those who hold dearly our tradition and adherence to the principles of democracy. I share implicitly the position of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister, and of course to a lesser extent, but nonetheless supportive of talking about the Foreign Affairs Minister, Sobers. Yeah. That is a dangerous thing, where you may have a cabal who believe they are so emboldened and so empowered because they may be around for some time, believe that they can, of course, undermine the democratic processes and taint the whole organization by conduct that does not meet the standard that we all aspire and practice as far as democratic ideals, principles, and of course the outcome, far less for the process that democracy demands. Those are questions I'm sure that the Prime Minister has been asking CARICOM, and they can't answer. Because it's obvious that if it is that you wanted to put on the agenda a significant position as a Secretary General, everybody must know. You can't couch it or hide it in something called a retreat. And then say that under that rubric, it is, of course, understood under a subheading called administration. No, that is too significant. Is the head, is that person is almost, is more significant than the chairman of CARICOM, the Secretary General. So therefore, it requires the highest standard of transparency, accountability, and democracy for whosoever it is that will be holding or aspire to hold that office. So all of that has been thrown out the window. Nobody spoke about that, you know. And then to have the most, what I consider to be egregious and intellectually and common sense insulting to say that the heads took a decision to do that on the retreat. So it wasn't on the agenda at all. Yet still, there were others that were saying that it was so under, of course, the rubric called retreat. Which one it is? Which is it? But then, of course, we had the opposition here in Trinidad, a fellow called Avery Brown, claiming that he is, of course, the representation of impeccable mannerism and laundered attire that is spotless, and believe that that will make him bright. And we see that, of course, typical with the PNM. They project an image of impeccability, but when they open their bloody mouth, or when they are given the task of managing the affairs of the country, we see that they have fallen down, not just miserably, but disastrously, since, of course, it usually will bring disaster for Trinidad and Tobago. Let us not waste time with that. Rowley, Manning, all of them, and they project this image of intellectual and moral and ethical and political awareness and, of course, professionalism. And when you hear them in their true element, they are nothing but, as Rowley would say, wabbing and jesters. Wabbing and jesters, yeah. That's what it is. So we have had enough of them to know. But here it is, in an attempt, of course, to engage in political coboism and opportunism, Brown comes and says, listen, the deportment of the Prime Minister at that function, as far as he is concerned, because somehow the PNM feels that what they do or what they have been accustomed doing over the years, that is cast in stone, and no other government or no other party coming into government must deviate from that. That is illusion. That is tomfoolery of oneself. Not of others, of oneself. You are elected as a government based essentially on your manifesto and, of course, the principles that the electorate would have seen in you, and as a consequence, they voted out to someone and brought in who they believe will manage the affairs of the country for the 5-year period, and that is the cycle that has been established for government in this country. I'm talking about central government. Yeah. So who the hell is you to say that we are accustomed doing this and therefore it must continue because you know more than everybody else? And they turn out, of course, to be a bunch of ignoramus. So he says that she didn't even, the Prime Minister, Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa, did not acknowledge the Secretary General in her presentation. You're going to see tonight anybody to be accused of disrespect, of poor etiquette. Their punctilio needs much to be desired, is that of Carol Bannett. You're going to see tonight where when Kamala Prasad Bissessa, the Honorable Prime Minister, addressed the CARICOM leader, she had no choice. Anybody who would have gotten the opportunity to address the heads must say good day to all heads and supportive dignitaries, must say that. And therefore that statement, that salvo, that introduction would have captured everybody, including the Secretary General. But Brown is saying that when she would have said that, she had to acknowledge in a special way the Secretary General, because he believed that we are asses, and that kind of narrative he could project onto the population, but could only be absorbed, and I don't even think it will be absorbed by sycophants and those who believe that somehow they still have credibility. But I want to tell you in this video tonight, you will see as well, that Barnett, when she had her turn at the podium in St. Kitts, she went before, she spoke before, obviously, our Prime Minister, Kamala Prasad Biswas. I think she might have spoken last, our Prime Minister. But, so she had, of course, to address all the heads, and you could simply say that to all heads, and of course that would include Kamala Prasad Biswas. Let's not waste time with that. But where she, Barnett, had faltered is when during her address to CARICOM, she made the fatalistic and poisonous mistake, and I don't want to say it's a mistake, but deliberate ploy. When she was acknowledging, as she must, new prime ministers consequential of elections during the course of 2025, because the exercise or the meeting is in 2026, and early 2026, we're talking about last month, 2025. She, Barnett, in acknowledging those new prime ministers, and don't tell me you don't know that Kamala Prasad Biswas is a new prime minister too. I hope you're not that dunderheaded and stupid like Brown and Day to believe that somehow Barnett wasn't disrespectful when she did not mention Kamala Prasad Biswas as a new prime minister elected only in April last year. You see, you will hear tonight when, in recognizing those new prime ministers, she started with the one in Suriname, a woman, but that election was in May. So 1 month before, Kamala Prasad Biswas was elected prime minister in Trinidad and Tobago. Granted, she did not attend the meeting immediately after the elections or nearing the end of last year of CARICOM heads, but it was for the first time she was attending a meeting, which makes it, of course, even more incumbent on the Secretary General to acknowledge this new Prime Minister. She had no excuse. And even if she wished, it was impossible, because she had no opportunity to congratulate Kamala Prasad Biswas on the previous occasion. This was the only first time opportunity, because Kamala Prasad Biswas for the first time attended, of course, the heads of government, heads of CARICOM meeting in St. Kitts. First time. So nobody could make that mistake. And if she made that mistake. If she want to claim it as a mistake, then she should not be Secretary General of CARICOM. Should not be. But she started in May last year, a particular prime minister, new prime minister, and came down the line and ended up, of course, with Motley from Barbados, never mentioning Kamala Persad Bissessa. But Avery Brown, or Apron Brown, wherever he is, has the audacity and the temerity to conveniently skip over and recklessly and deceptively, and of course with the intent to hoodwink and gaslight the population, that Kamala Persad Bissessa did not address or acknowledge, because he sensed there is some kind of antagonism, there is some kind of unsettling scenario, but he wants to use it for PNM, for him and PNM's, of course, political, what I consider to be currency, a currency that is dead, a currency that has no value politically, I'm talking about. Yeah. So I think I have made the case, and I'm saying that because of the domestic political and the political opportunism, and to, of course, expose the PNM for who they are, any port for a political storm. He had nothing to say. Shut your trap. You ought not to have said anything until you would have seen what the outcome would have been with respect to that battleship that came from the American Armada down south here in the Caribbean. You should have shut your trap when the radar was installed. But no, greedy for power, avarice, and making themselves complete and total buffoons, inane, an asinine specimen of what I could only describe as nincompoops. Yes, indeed. Let's go straight, of course, to that clip now, and you judge for yourself.
CARICOM heads, dignitaries, distinguished guests, I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting from one Twin Island Republic to another one here, Trinidad and Tobago.
The CARICOM Heads of Government Conference in St. Kitts recently. If you look at what the Prime Minister delivered on that CARICOM speech last week, all right-thinking citizens have expressed dismay. She began those remarks with disrespect demonstrated to the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, the very distinguished Carla Barnett, not even recognizing the head of the Secretariat in her remarks.
CARICOM heads, dignitaries, distinguished guests,
we also had occasion to be very proud of our long-standing record of solid democratic governance, as 7 CARICOM member states and 4 associate members held peaceful general...
Let's start it over so you get a better appreciation as to what transfer. So I was careful to put in there the salutation, the commencement, because Brown is saying that Kamala Persad Bissessa had no manners. But she made a general acknowledgement. There's no other way you could have addressed or not addressed a forum like that. You must say all heads and all special guests, etc. You must say that. Brown is saying that she never said that, and therefore he expected her to address the Secretary General specially. No, she has a job to do. He didn't even say, well, I don't know. One of the prime ministers, he didn't even say that. But let's go to the line. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Let me make sure that we are on and kicking. Are you hearing me? Hello?
Yes, sir. Good night.
Yes, good night. Welcome.
I hear you on the phone.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I hear you on the telly.
Good. I now fix it. Right, good. I now fix the phone part. Go ahead.
So, at a good night to all the listeners, share the life.
Yeah.
And East, West, North, and South. You see how rude and disrespectful I talk, enough? Because he's my friend. It's only when he says
only friends can do that. Only friends can do that thing. So you go right ahead. My shoulders are broad.
Yeah, and it's only friends without respect will disrespect honor and people with status. Because you see, when I didn't have no bottom seeing me, I interrupt and say things which I tell myself are right. But I want to tell every Brown, right? No, first I will ask him. I hear somewhere down in the Go Martin, where he live in. Is that a man? Is either beat a man or a man is beat a man. If you know anything about that, or whether people, the constituency serve, or where he live in somewhere down there. Right?
I hear you.
So, he make him feel that he living close to that place. Because you see when a man trying to abuse a man, right, and talk like that, it's somewhere he close by either a neighbor or somebody that do that and he feel he can talk out. But every Brown, I call it your name tonight on the corridor transformation. Stop disrespecting and trying to downplay my honorable esteemed political leader, SC, Ms. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, SC, yeah? Because Keith Rowley, you roll under, or they have no merit, no status. And it shows that you're talking up in the river, your rectum, because all you're looking to do is make it look bad. But you see, when my Prime Minister pulled the money and the funding from CARICOM, you see, all of a sudden, come, Miss Kamala, Trinidad, we listen to here. We'll scrap the election and call back our next one. But it might not expect change. Because money all the one. And see, and that topic of money and the cow, down this walk. Not the father cow one, the mother cow. Down this walk. Right? You see, I want to ask Al Gonzal, what relationship he had with Manning, that he set up money he borrowed and he asked for help to bail out, he had paid back. I want to ask him that the money, and when my Prime Minister said this is not an ATM machine, all it went to a machine, but all the see that as an ATM machine, and all they get in. Every Brown tell me why Delcy go on Grenada if she going to collect the outstanding money from Petro-Caribbean. All they're just trying to make it look bad, but every Brown answer this question. Camille was jump up and take claim to a question. Saddam was explaining why it is this immigration law is so important. All they explain that. All they love the black people. All they give them $300 a week. $600 a fortnight. All they tell them that all they have to pay property tax, and if they pay that, they pay $5,000 or go to jail. All they say local government reform. And up to now, half of the corporation run by the PNM, they're not updated in the audited financial report. Or no, Paris, you know that is discrimination and playing fool. What all they was doing with the UNC corporation, and they was making it work, and the strategy all they was doing, give them the month before that they send it back to the Treasury. And how much debt? How did that run up? Just like NGC and just like TNTech. But you see, the single market and economy, everybody saying, there is the biggest and the largest. But understand this. See who control and which is the conglomerate control. all the sales in CARICOM. But all they want, my Prime Minister now, just take up the money and hand all there, and all they want to cost she. But as long as Uncle Lennox on this air, I'll tell you every bronc, just say how much foreign investors and how much foreign companies all they talk with. All they talk to companies in Ghana to come to take the refinery. All they talk about India, Jindal. What is the latest? All they give the Panman yard away. What is the latest all they do? And then, since you're doing trade and you all they know Venezuela so good and all of them, tell me how far all they reach in the gas deal and when you would have benefit. If it's 2028, all they say. So the citizens and the PNM who want to be misled, all the way till 2028 now. My Prime Minister trying to balance this economy and try to make sure we get the revenue to go in the right way. That way she's cutting out the corruption to run the country. That's what she said. They where she'll get the money from. And all they're not trying to make it look hard. Because here what's going on. We've seen progress. Uncle Lennox, tell every wrong that next time you're talking, right, in our press conference, talk about the leadership in the PNM. I'm not my Prime Minister. And answer the question if it have any narco link in the building or the building. Because you know you have some picture with some green truck pumping concrete. Good night.
Yes, man. Yes, man. They look for that. You see, it is critical because these people in the PNM have an attitude. They believe that somehow people are not going to, one, understand their modus operandi, how they operate. They operate brutally. They operate savagely. They care nothing about kind words so long as you are a political opponent. And they will be violent as well, both in terms of verbalization and in terms of actual conduct. Verbalization here meaning inciting. And don't tell me all you don't know what I'm talking about. We have seen it on election time. We have seen it since Eric William time, when of course he talked about those recalcitrant minority. Yeah. And couldn't believe that the curtail was booked from 1986 come right back down the road by the same people that they would have been extremely belligerent. They have castigated, believe that they wouldn't come up to scratch. So they cannot take how Kamala Persad-Bissessar has approached her prime ministerial responsibility. They can't take it. You see, Rowley alone must talk about young girls as hyenas in the African jungle. Only Rowley must call, whether sitting or not sitting prime minister, but a parliamentarian, a Jamet. He alone must talk about traitors and making reference, of course, to the Spanish Civil War. He alone must call women a golf course, and he alone must tell women that he irresponsible, he is not a man, and he can't tell them what man to take. When they were complaining in Maloney of men taking advantage of them, women complaining to a prime minister, asking, pleading, and asking for help, and he said, I'm not your man. Not in your bedroom. But when it is convenient, of course, and they are on the other side of the whip, so to speak, they then start to get on as though they have some bout of self-righteous indignation. Suddenly, they can't mash ants, haul all the tail. We know that that is wolf in sheep clothing methodology. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Hey, good evening, Dr. Lennox.
Good evening to you, my friend.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, no problem, man.
I was talking to somebody today, and he was a nurse, and they're talking about this protest, how come I should do this and give somebody the money and all kinds of stuff, but all you get money and all you even know. All you don't have to rent all your house anymore. If PNM was in power, you had to rent your house. Gas would have raised about 4 or 5 times already. So I don't know what it is going on with all you. You know they can't answer me. I say, all you like to rent all your house?
I have a solution to that. I have concluded, people, that there are some people who are naturally self-destructive. And it doesn't matter what you give them. You know, it's something like feeding pearls to swine. I'm sorry to say it, but that is what I have concluded. Because, I mean, in the case of the nurses, they started off by protesting for either the cutting of and the reducing of the cost per hour of extra duties, extra time that they would have to stay. And the rationale was reasonable. They were to get $60, they were getting $75. The state and asking back for the money that was overspent, and they received. But they're saying now we're going to bring it to the $60, you vex. And of course, inside of there, the leadership of that organization, nurses, and they decided, well, listen, he's going to make heavy weather. He's going to make hay. Why is the sun is shining? Because he gets a platform, because people are angry, and of course he's looking to capitalize and exploit the anger, if you want to call that, and further agitate by, of course, asking for other things now. Putting on that, when he accepted, of course, the 5% of the last administration. So he has deflected attention away from himself and salvaged some kind of what I consider to be agenda, some kind of cause, because the nurses started, as I said, where they did, and then he decides, of course, to carry it further to pursue his own agenda. And I would boldly say political as well. But go ahead, my friend.
Well, apparently, what I am noticing, like when PNM was in power, the police, they shoot out all the tear gas behind me when we were protesting. There are no tear gas again.
No, you wonder, but of course you have a different government in place. They allow them to protest, not so, in peace. They did influence the commissioner of police to say no. And no commissioner of police, as I would have had the personal experience where I was targeted, saying that no more. And when we went to San Fernando, you could pray by assembling at the statue of one of our African heroes, Marcus Garvey, but you can't walk through San Fernando. And when that was attempted, I heard police officers saying they want to get to Andy because he's trying, of course, to defy them, and is about, paraphrasing now, is about power, and they're going to show him to get up in a cell today and all of that. And we had, of course, to generate caution in the face of that kind of what I consider to be abuse. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, so what I do most of the time, I call the PNM evil, mean, wicked, nasty rapscallion leeches that sucks the money out of Trinidad into their pockets and the friends and the family.
Yeah.
Lennox, have a good night.
Thank you very
I'm
much,
watching
man.
you on the TV.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think it was well placed and timely as well. Yes, indeed. Yeah, my conclusion is that there are those who are self-destructive. Any port for a storm, for political promotion, whether directly or indirectly, because it is clear anybody who took the 5% under the PNM in the latter days, in the late stage of the, and therefore closeness to calling the election, even though of course it was called earlier, it had about 6 or 7 months still, but it was the final year of that administration. But they were smart enough, those who took the 5%, claiming to be representing workers, whether it be the Port of Spain corporation workers, that of San Fernando, and that of the nurses and the teachers. It was clear to me, it was transparent, and only a blind man would not see that it was all about attempting to save the last administration. Let's go to the line. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Lennox.
Yes, man.
I want to send you something. I hear you was talking about the lollipop man.
The what man?
The lollipop man.
Oh, the lollipop man. I hear you. My boy lollipop. All right, I hear you. Go ahead.
I got some information, historical information.
Okay.
On a Tobago News blog, and some of the comments that was made about Amory Brown and why they had some issues with him. You remember during that time, Manning didn't want to choose Valley because everything was unfolding at that point in time.
Yes. The Sean.
Right. The Akil Chambers.
Yes.
Right. But there are also some nasty things saying about the lollipop man. So I will send it to you on this number later on this evening. You will
appreciate that.
You will be very, very surprised. You know, we just talk about the KCR man, eh?
Yes.
And what he did as a teacher.
Yes. I have vented that for a better part of the time he was Prime Minister and before.
Well, this information that has been on the net, because it was easily circulated, was about the lollipop man and his profession. Some heinous things. But we'll leave that for this evening when I send it to you. The thing I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
The 28th of April is the anniversary of the party.
Yes. Victory,
and
yes. Elections.
And we have to say and pick up the party for all the positive things that have been done.
Yes.
If we allow KCR and his bunch of bandits to overwhelm us on the talk radio, then we won't get message. First message I want to tell people, what happened yesterday? You know what happened yesterday? School reopened. Did you hear anything about any school shut down and under repair? Nada, nothing. But the newspaper didn't put that on the front page. For the first time in 10 years, there isn't an issue on school repairs, etc. I find that strange. The other thing I saw, Sunday I was in Port of Spain and I saw the Blue Wave, the rebranded Calcutta ship. You know, I think I mentioned this already. The people in Tobago very happy with the crowd and the tourists.
Oh yeah, they said they had a bumper Easter season. Yes. Barring of course that tragedy, which of course is a blot, but by and large they were laughing all the way to the bank post Easter. Yeah.
Listen to this, and if you see through what that will do, one, that happens, and the domestic tourism start to surge as it was 10 years ago. Remember, the domestic tourism in Tobago was buzzing.
Yes.
And that kept them going. Once that happened, and the domestic tourism goes up, then you know who's going to suffer? All the rest of the CARICOM island, you know. Because you remember they used to say some of the largest tourists come from Trinidad.
Yes.
St. Lucia, St. Vincent, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So let Gonzalez open my mouth and try to badmouth us. And by the way, I hear he signed up as a member of the PNM and a dual citizen. And he has his own PNM radio talk show in St. Vincent.
I see.
So
that's where the information came from. The disclosure about Sobers does get seasick, and so he opted out of that meeting. He failed to tell us, however, that the man got a WhatsApp call the morning stating that there should only heads of state, not any member or heads of delegates or delegation. Yeah.
Because I saw you read Hamid Ghani piece on the Brent issue challenge and how we link it to the embargo that is happening with CARICOM. Because Barnett has utter disrespect for our Prime Minister, both as the opposition leader and as the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And they knew if she sat down in a room with other prime ministers to choose her, our prime minister say nada, nada. She would say, this woman hasn't functioned as an independent and objective Secretary General, so how can I support her? How can I support her with 21%
even to today, in spite of the surreptitious or clandestine re-election of this woman? And as we are on that, let me ask you something. If an election was to take place, whether clandestine or otherwise, you didn't think that it would be natural, it will be obvious, it will be as a matter of process or procedure that CARICOM leaders, if that exercise was to take place, don't you think that they ought to have an opportunity to say, listen, I don't want this one, I want this, I put in my own person to vie for the position? I just don't understand what kind of democracy that was. And these big people who are supposed to be leading, how much million we have, 7 million people in CARICOM, they want to tell me and tell the population and the educated people across the region that was all right to sit down in a retreat and just select somebody and then say that was democracy at work. Come on.
It was a clandestine conspiracy. But listen to this.
Go ahead.
How do the OAS choose the people, the Secretary General? How do CARICOM, not CARICOM, United Nations choose the people? It is in front of everybody.
That's right. You have to be transparently elected, and you have to You have to fight if they are competitors, but you sit down in a situation where the person had exclusive. It was exclusive.
And when you have transparency, you will see who for you and who not for you.
That's right.
And you could move on, and you could move on. The other thing too,
Go ahead.
they should have, if our prime minister not there, zoom it to her office, ma'am, we will be zooming this so you'll see what's going on. You understand?
Yes.
Why you have it in as I say, a cloister thing, closed off? What you want to hide? Because when she fluttered the feathers with the Brent Thomas issue, they had to get it because they don't want her in any deliberation to choose a Secretary General. That is why they did that.
To me, let me tell you what I think. I think it's a cloistered grouping who believe that somehow they have a monopoly on the people of the region through that mechanism, through that organization, and they want to maintain the status quo, even though, of course, you would have been kicked out like Gonzalez. He still felt that he had a right to talk, just as Rowley, because they are from the old guard. They are part of the almost close to the creators of this entity that they want to call their personal, their personal pala, so to speak. Go ahead.
It is a lodge type behavior.
That's right, a cabal, yes.
Right. And the fact that anybody who opposes them, they will want to nail them to the cross. That is what that Ogbeman say.
Yeah, even when they had no power,
right.
Even when they lost the power, they want to maintain influence. That is a piece of badness. So that is a major flaw in the operation of CARICOM that has to be jettisoned. Has to be.
Yeah. Something wrong.
Yeah.
A quick thing before I go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was watching the Senate today, and this thing about this free trade with some Latin American countries.
Yes.
And so was make a speech to say, yes, we're doing that. But as usual, Amy Brown say, it was us and Valley and all of that, and he called out names. But it clicked back my memory, and I will link it to something. Valley was pushing South-to-South relationship, and he was particularly interested in opening a gateway to Latin America. That's in 2005, 2001, 2002. So he was the man behind that. And he pushed to get visa-free travel into Trinidad. You could have come into Trinidad, particularly Latin Americans, a couple of those countries, without a visa. And you could have come in and stay for 6 months. 2 on 2, I just get 5 You know what trade that allowed to happen? Nightingale.
Yeah,
you know where they get
human trafficking. Human trafficking, yeah.
Right. Those are the people who came in for 6. And there was a proliferation. What do you think you get Copacabana thing for? Owned by KCR best friend.
Yes.
That is all of Main Street and Woodbrook. The boardwalk and thing.
Yeah, Maurice Street is the most famous of them all.
Right. But it started with him and his South Trade Initiative. I don't know, because we never developed no trade with them, hardly any trade. But something else was developed. You understand?
Yeah, the oldest trade in the world.
Right. The last thing I want to say.
Go ahead.
Why do the PNM continue to push for cutting grass and CPEP and things like that? Are they really serious about cutting grass and things? They had a policy that allowed 30,000 Venezuelans to come here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, at least 50% of those people are in the agricultural sector. Go down to Chagonas, go down to all them big fields, you will see a lot of Venezuela. So they created a policy such that they created employment for the Venezuelans. Why the CPEP workers cannot do that job? You understand what I'm saying? All you have to do is to fix their wages, make sure it is meaningful, make sure nobody abuse them in terms of labor. That's all you have to do. Have a framework for it. Because I am sure you might have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5,000 Venezuelans in the labor sector, in the agriculture sector. Look, and you can see that around West too. Anytime there's a robbery or murder, they say Venezuelan has been working in the field and they come and rob them and have to go. So there's no shortage of jobs in the agricultural sector for people who want to work. This Minister of Agriculture is making headways in trying to develop the agriculture sector. So there's a lot of work. So the CPEP people who like cutting grass, well, it has no stone to paint, right? But basically cutting grass, they could go into the agriculture sector. But you know what they want to do? Want to do a 3-hour, 4-hour and go home. Not productive at all. I go on, boy, Lennox.
Thank you very much. Yeah, all right, my friend. Of course, I've been wanting to go deeper into that particular issue about unemployment, choice and policy position. All of that are issues that we have to discuss later. But let's go to the line. President, good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
This is San Fernando here.
Hi, San Fernando.
I think you seem to be forgetting one thing, concerning the thing in San Fernando. Hello?
The what in San Fernando?
The march that was in San Fernando.
Mass?
It was the march that was in San Fernando.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
That was on Harris Promenade.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
But it is the police that got to Robert Amarin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in spite of that, Andy decided that he will become very visible. Took a flag and he started to walk and shouting, and 1 or 2 persons were following him. And the police came, he spoke to me. Say, who is that fella? So and so and so, and leave him alone. We will lock him up, and so on and so forth and so. When they had no authority to do that, because it was a religious exercise, and the law says that you can conduct a pilgrimage without having any police authority or
but clearly
permission.
But clearly I could remember that the police get into Robert Amar because he came up on the platform and said, let's do a prayer, and then after the prayer he tell everybody that they could go home.
Yeah, the police got to him. Yes, I remember he was there. Yeah, the police did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But Andy was of a different view because we knew the law. We didn't have any permission to assemble where we assembled because when we looked at the law, we realized that there is a loophole there, because if we had asked for any permission by the police at the time, we would not have gotten it. So therefore, we had to find other ways to assemble, and that is how we were able to be where we were at the Marcus Garvey statute. Yeah.
Okay, well, and then to some of the laws that exist, some of them old laws still exist because
the Summary Offences Act is the called petty crime act. Yeah.
Because I could also remember that there were African drummers there, and when these guys decided to take out the drums to beat, the police stopped them. All of that happened,
Yeah, I didn't see that part. But what I tell you though, Regrello was the mayor, and I was down there the day before. He invited me to come down, saying, well, listen, I have the letter for you, and we want to use the bandstand Uh-huh. When we reach out, what happened by the bandstand? It was all what? It was all cordoned off with these heavy metal police bars. Yeah. They cordoned it off. That's why we ended up further east at the statue of Marcus Garvey. That's how we ended up there. Yeah, because we were to use the bandstand.
But are we waiting patiently for you to play the clip? This clip.
Yeah. Let me do that because the time will be upon us.
I think that's right on another forum, but I didn't see the whole thing.
Right, okay.
I'm waiting for your patience to play.
So I put in Amy Brown comments and all to show up and to, of course, give people a one-stop shop appreciation as to the nonsense that these fellas are on and the blatant lies they will come. Not that they don't know, so you have to say they're lying. Because they must have, for you to come and commit yourself that way, you must have viewed the tape, you must have had some knowledge, but you come and lie blatantly, and I have a difficulty with these fellas and women. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
All right, people, I think we have exhausted as far as we can, but let's go to the audio now of that clip that is playing in the back of me. Let's go there one time. I think I did enough explanation, so it's for you to listen.
I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting.
So listen to Kamala Prasad-Bissessar when she addressed.
Heads, dignitaries,
Caribbean heads, she says.
I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting. From one Twin Island Republic to another one here, Trinidad and Tobago.
The CARICOM Heads of Government Conference in St. Kitts recently. If you look at what the Prime Minister delivered on that CARICOM speech last week, all right-thinking citizens have expressed dismay. She began those remarks with disrespect demonstrated to the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, the very distinguished Carla Barnett, not even recognizing the head of the Secretariat in her remarks.
CARICOM heads, dignitaries, distinguished guests.
We also had occasion to be very proud of our long-standing record of solid democratic governance, as 7 CARICOM member states and 4 associate members held peaceful general elections during the year. Since our regular meeting in Jamaica last July, Her Excellency Dr. Jennifer Girling Siemens was inaugurated as the first female President of the Republic of Suriname following general elections in May 2025.
May. Bypass Kamala.
His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali was re-elected as President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness was re-elected as Prime Minister of Jamaica. Dr. the Honorable Godwin Friday was elected as the new Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Honorable Philip Pierre was re-elected as Prime Minister of St. Lucia. And Honorable Mia Amor Mockley has returned as the Prime Minister of the Republic of Barbados. Warm congratulations to them all.
Imagine that. Not one iota of recognition for the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, who was elected a month before the first person that she mentioned from Suriname, and a woman Prime Minister at that. And she being a woman, I'm sure that could not have slipped her. And so the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is correct when she said that it was a travesty, was absolute and total disrespect. And Amy Brown, shame on him or her, I don't know, for attempting, of course, to extricate political fodder and made the usual folly of himself and those who encouraged or who were part and parcel of that so-called press conference to decry, to renounce, and to say that it was inappropriate for our Prime Minister to express herself the way she did, expressing some serious concerns, and the consequence, or subsequently, we were exposed to the fissures, to the fragments, to the brittleness of CARICOM. I want to say thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. You did well. Consistent, of course, with your stance, and which was part and parcel of your inaugural speech or address at CARICOM, when you boldly claim, as we have been doing over the years, that crime cannot be a public health matter, nor indeed having regard to the state of belligerence, crime, and criminality. The Caribbean could never be a zone of peace. Never be. And now we know that CARICOM is a crucible, or to use a local expression, a mortar of confusion. No, mortar pestle, mortar, that kind of mortar talking about. Confusion. And so, the population of Trinidad and Tobago will stand behind the Honorable Prime Minister for transparency, accountability, because it could not be. There is no excuse. If you could not have haphazardly engaged in such a serious and far-reaching exercise as the election of a Secretary General of CARICOM without giving other members an opportunity to say, listen, in advance, I would prefer to see this candidate and prefer or put up a candidate to contest, even though they may or would have lost, because it is about the majority, but no opportunity at all for such an exercise undermines the very democracy that CARICOM came together to foster, to protect, to deliver, to defend, and to ensure in the process that transparency, accountability, communication, good governance, all of that was scuttled by that one exercise. So whether they try to argue that CARICOM governments got the bundle they do in advance of a retreat that was supposed to have what? An election process under the rubric of CARICOM administration. And whether they said that, on the other hand, because there's another story, on the other hand, that the decision was made on the morning of the retreat, it makes it extremely egregious. It makes it an unpardonable sin. It makes it unfathomable, incomprehensible, that no opportunity would have been given to any member to prefer, to advance, to declare that they do not want or they are not supporting this candidate but will support this other candidate in the spirit of democracy, they cannot defend that. I want to see Drew and all those who defended that process. How are you defending that? Nobody got an opportunity. It's one candidate. It's one candidate. And obviously Trinidad and Tobago at minimum had a difficulty with that candidate. So therefore, one would have expected in an electoral process, if it was transparent, if it was accountable, if it was done in the spirit of democracy, then Trinidad and Tobago ought to have had the opportunity to advance, to put up a candidate. Only in CARICOM, defend that. Defend that. Let me see how only defending that. That's the only thing that will make it pellucid, transparent, and clear, and without doubt, and irrefutable that the entire process was connived, was conceived, was orchestrated, was planned, was choreographed, and therefore one can conclude transparency did not exist, and the dastard head of corruption could also be put into the equation, consequential of what had transpired. Again, CARICOM must tell us why it is that those who were not in favor of Barnett were not given the opportunity to put up a candidate. If democracy was in fact exercised in that process of electing a what? A general, a Secretary General of CARICOM in the person of Carla Barnett. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Yeah. San Fernando, again, man.
Yes, man.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hearing you loud and clear.
You can see that the PNM itself has a very long way to go before they can even try and get back into office. You know, I can't see them with this amount of lies and stuff like that coming back into office, because why is Amy Brown then open his mouth and say to the public when Rowley was getting on with his vulgar attitude? Why didn't open his mouth and say something then? You understand?
Yeah.
So
convenient.
Yeah. You know. Now that you play the tape from the beginning, right? We can actually see where the woman didn't mention Kamala's name at all.
At all. And Kamala did address everybody, which would have included her. So it is wrong to say that she was not addressed, because that is normal. But she went on to specifically identify newcomers to CARICOM and left out. It is clear she could not have. It wasn't a mistake. Leave out Kamala Prasad Bisesa.
Yeah. You know, so that's the comments for the event.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, people, of course,
okay.
Don't forget, of course, tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself. Yes, we have come to the end. It's now, of course, 9:35. I'm not going to go further. I think I had accomplished what I had set out to accomplish. I want to thank, of course, all of the callers, very, 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 what I consider to be erudite, very intelligent callers. And, of course, we are going to move from strength to strength. As I said, we new format for the program, etc. We'll have, of course, as I say, a kids' corner earlier, about 5:30. My son will be, of course, handling that. He's 10 years of age. But if he could get the president to come to his school, and if he could get the commissioner of police, and now, of course, contemplating when he would attend, I think, of course, he's well on his way to making sure that he makes a contribution to his country and his community and his family and to himself, of course, at a very tender age. But that, to me, are good signs, particularly, of course, in an area such as where we are right now as we speak, right on George Street at our resource center. Yes, we set up a studio here, and we, of course, we are working here very assiduously to generate the transformation and the paradigm shift and the attitudinal requirement for decent and good contributing, industrious, and of course law-abiding citizens. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless, and see you tomorrow. Let me play that again so that people who might have just joined us would have had
dignitaries, distinguished guests. I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting.
So hear it again. Kamala's address.
Dignitaries, distinguished guests. I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting from one Twin Island Republic to another one here, Trinidad and Tobago.
At the CARICOM Heads of Government Conference in St. Kitts recently. If you look at what the Prime Minister delivered on that CARICOM speech last week, all right-thinking citizens have expressed dismay. She began those remarks with disrespect demonstrated to the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, the very distinguished Carla Barnett, not even recognizing the head of the Secretariat in her remarks.
CARICOM heads, dignitaries, distinguished guests.
We also had occasion to be very proud of our long-standing record of solid democratic governance, as 7 CARICOM member states and 4 associate members held peaceful general elections during the year. Since our regular meeting in Jamaica last July, Her Excellency Dr. Jennifer Girling-Siemens was inaugurated as the first female President of the Republic of Suriname following general elections in May 2025. His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali was re-elected as President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness was re-elected as Prime Minister of Jamaica. Dr. the Honorable Godwin Friday was elected as the new Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Honorable Philip Pierre was re-elected as Prime Minister of St. Lucia. And Honorable Mia Amor Mockley has returned as the Prime Minister of the Republic of Barbados. Warm congratulations to them all.
So there we have it, people.
Is that you? Can't believe that is you. So long I see you. Give me a wine now. Give me a wine now. Give me the wine that I want. Long time, long time. So long I see you. Give me a wine now. Give me a wine now. And I will make up for all this time. Make up for all this time. Hey, look who. You know how long we are ready friend and them. When last did they talk to you? So long I ain't talk to you. Go funny, you're in my sight. Didn't know you was here tonight. It looked like you're doing alright, like money running real nice. I thought you hide.